any piano teacher, technician, piano salesperson, performer, or even past shopper what the minimum height is that they should be looking for in an upright piano, and you're likely going to get the same answer, anything around 120 centimeters or 47 to 48 inches in height. Now, why does that height always come up? Well, it really has more to do with the length of the bass string, and of course, the taller the upright piano, the longer the bass string you can fit. That's when you really get a nice balanced tone. And so for students who don't have the budget or the space to be putting in 6-foot grands, this is actually a pretty adequate stand-in, and sometimes a really, really nice stand-in. Because of that near universal agreement on height, 48-inch pianos are really well known, especially the ones from the bigger manufacturers. And with Yamaha and Kawai, that has been for many years the U1 or the K300. But Kawai has been making a sleeper 48-inch upright piano for many years, and it's just not on a lot of people's radar. And so in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about some of the reasons why the K400 might be worth the slight step up from the K300 and what changes it's going to bring to your musical experience. So the K300 and K400 have quite a few similarities. First of all, they are exactly the same height, which is right around 48 inches. The key height off the floor is also the same, and the width of the instrument is also the same. And in markets where the K300 is made in Japan and sold as such, well, they've got that in common too, because my understanding is that all K400s are actually made in Japan. They also both use the Millennium 3 upright action with that improved microcell cushioning. They both use a mahogany core and double felted hammer, and they also share the same scale design. But this is where we start to get into some of the more interesting differences. Because while you probably noticed that I said the height and the width were the same, the depth is slightly different. And we've actually pulled keys out and realized that the key stick length on a K400 is actually slightly longer than we would get on a K300. Moving on to what's probably the most obvious difference is the visual difference. You notice that on a K400, it has this really wide music rack, which looks pretty similar to what you might find on a grand piano. You also have a key cover that, rather than simply closing down on a simple hinge, this actually closes up a lot more like a grand piano as well. So you have several of these cabinet changes that make sitting at a K400 feel a lot more grand-like than you might feel otherwise in front of a K300. But these are not simply visual differences. There is a tonal difference that those changes actually produces in the instrument. So for one, there is just more cubic air inside the box that's now able to resonate, and that produces a different character of sound as you're sitting in front of the instrument, particularly if you've got the lid closed. The K400 produces a slightly warmer, more resonant tone than you're going to get out of a K300. But there's another difference that produces a tonal change here, and it's behind the music desk, and very easy to miss if you don't have a salesperson who directs your attention towards it. And that is an extra tone hole that is simply not there on a K300. So the presence of these tone holes does a couple of things. For one, you'll notice that there is a bar which you can put down into, I guess, a fully open position at the back of this. And so you can increase the distance between the back of the music desk and the tone hole, letting more sound out. So it gives you a second option of affecting the amount of sound which is getting out into the air, and it's going to be a different direction and a slightly different character to simply opening up the top of the cabinet. So when I'm on a K400, I'm getting more of that hammer noise without having to do anything at all, simply because of those tone ports. Now, another thing that I've noticed with K400s, and I do need to emphasize that Kawai has not confirmed that this is true or not. So take this as nothing but my own personal observations of several dozen examples of K300s and K400s. It seems to me like the K400 does receive a slightly higher quality soundboard than what they traditionally put on the K300. And I would say that the likelihood that that is the case, particularly if you're comparing an Indonesian K300 to a Japanese K400, might be even more pronounced. Let's now go through the piano bottom to top and take a few musical observations. So there's a lot of bell-like qualities coming off of that bass. I wouldn't describe it as like a massive bass, but it is very well balanced. Moving into kind of our tenor range up here. This is very clean through here. A little more bloom and a little less attack in terms of proportion. Once we get up into this range, super clean, super clear. Like almost zero distortion or kind of dirtiness in the tone up here. Also moving up into the treble section of the instrument. So up in this top section, we've got like the bass, we've got quite a bit of a bell-like character coming out there. So that usually happens when it's like the fourth partial is a little more emphasized. Broadly speaking, it's a very warm instrument. There's also an extra shimmer there that I just don't hear or I don't get on a K300 usually. But that shimmer is a much lower kind of EQ range or EQ band than, say, what I would get off a Schimmel, where you've got quite a bit of high-end shimmer. This is like a mid-range resonance that kind of wraps around the instrument. And truly a great sense of depth. So here are my thoughts on the K400 and who should put this on the list for consideration. If you're already looking at a 48-inch upright piano, you've decided that something in the neighborhood of, say, $10,000 to $15,000 is the budget that you're looking at. Just to date this, we are in 2025 right now, and I'm talking about US dollars when I'm mentioning these prices. There are going to be, let's say, 3 or 4 models that will probably come up in recommendations. You're going to hear models from Yamaha. You'll probably hear, a K300 or maybe even a K500 from Kawai. But here are the reasons I think the K400 should probably be on that list if you've got a dealer in the area that carries it and you're able to get in front of it to try it out. For one, it may be completely subconscious, but when you're sitting in front of an upright piano that makes you feel like you're more in front of a grand piano, I think there's a potential that it changes how you approach that instrument, and I think that would be a good thing. 2, I think having the proper music desk rather than just the little flip down ledge means that if you are somebody who's going to be dealing with really serious scores or in front of a lot of sheet music, having this proper music desk is going to make a difference. It is not a lot of fun when you're dealing with massive multi-page scores when you just got the little fold down flap like most upright pianos give you. That's a big advantage. But more than anything, I think this piano delivers a complexity in the warmth, particularly in the mid 2/3 of the instrument, that I don't know of any other piano in this price range delivering. I don't think the K300 does that. I haven't heard that out of any of the Yamahas that I've experienced. I haven't heard that from any of the higher end Chinese manufacturers like the top end Hailuns or Parson produced instruments. And even the Eastern European pianos from manufacturers like Bechstein and Schimmel tend to focus on clarity and a really pronounced attack rather than producing all of this, subtle warmth. And so it's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's really more to say, if you know that your ear already really enjoys those kinds of tones, if the headphones you own tend to be a little bass biased or a little warm, and that's just really what sets you off, this instrument really needs to be on your list of things to investigate. Thanks again for checking us out here at Merriam Pianos on YouTube. We love bringing you piano content on a weekly basis, and we really thank everybody who has continued to support the channel over the many years by subscribing, by commenting, by contributing to an amazing community of people who just want to see piano succeed and continue on as a way of life and as an instrument well into the future. So if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. We would love to have you as a regular viewer. My name is Stu Harrison. We'll see you again soon.